the flying car known as the Crimson S8. For the next 4 weeks, we are going to focus on female STEM entrepreneurs and innovators. June is always the month for the celebration of women in engineering. Over here, we're going to talk about women in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEM. And we're going to explore, does women in engineering or doing technology, that's what we always depict, wearing hard hat, is it really happening in the current industry? Or really, it's really a different world and different way in that women or female participate in STEM activities. And to kick off the show tonight, we have Dr. Jennifer Dodgson from Lexikat. Let's go and meet her. Hi, Jennifer. So this is Dr. Jennifer Dodgson, and I'm going to refer her to as Jennifer. She's the CEO of a technology venture, which I will let her explain, called Lexikat. I am not sure what it means, but she has a doctorate, a PhD from, you guess, you would never guess that it's actually STEM, right? It's called the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy with the National University of Singapore. And what kind of STEM activities she do? And I will let Jennifer explain. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me. So yeah, Lexikat is a company that does natural language processing. And if you don't know what natural language processing is, then you're in good company, because a lot of people with doctorates aren't entirely sure either, even people in the field. Because it's related to machine learning and AI, and people have a lot of trouble defining both of those as well. In the broadest sense, machine learning is just anything that involves a computer changing its responses when it gets a response wrong. And obviously that includes a lot of things. So natural language processing is the subsector of this that deals with language in particular. And you've probably run into examples of it. So it's things like Google Translate. And if you've heard of GPT3, which is the big new natural language processing phenomenon that everyone is getting excited about, it's a writing API. So it imitates human writing. And if you put in a paragraph, it'll write a whole essay for you and just do your whole homework for you, which is great news if you've got not enough time to put into your writing. But Lexikat is, I would say Lexikat is not actually at this extremely high end of natural language processing, because all natural language processing involves a lot of processing power just because of the kind of calculations involved. Something like GPT-3, it's trillions and trillions of hours that they've put into this. The idea that Lexikat is based on is the idea that quite often a very simple model that you can modify works far better than a highly sophisticated model that you can't. So I can give an example of this that is something that our company has been working on. And that is sentiment-based financial trading. So people buy and sell stocks, and they talk about it on the internet a lot. And this means that we've got huge amounts of great data that we can use potentially to predict stock prices. Except this data is really hard to A, collect, and B, to process. And various people have tried in different ways to distill online sentiment into something that you can make trades based on. And some of them are done okay, some of them are done not very well. It's a bit of a crapshoot. So we decided to try our hand at it. And this, you can see the outputs of a test that we've been running for a few months now, trying to use online sentiment to predict next day Bitcoin prices. And this is a model that I made I didn't write any code, I just used our website that is freely available, lexicat.com, and uploaded my data, made a model, and then edited the model based on just eyeballing it and seeing what I thought was good and what I thought was bad. And it's, you know, it's a judgment call approach. It's always subjective. But you can see that our very simple model that I just spent an afternoon correcting and then ran is outperforming Google sentiment by 50% here. And that is because Google is great at what it does, but it tries to do too much. So Google Sentiment is supposed to be able to analyze any text that you upload. And it's sort of right maybe about 80% of the time. On the other hand, the model that I made, it's great for analyzing just this one topic, which is cryptocurrency sentiment, though it might not be so good for analyzing other topics. But because it's designed to work on this one specific topic, it means that we can beat Google just for this. Or, you know, if we wanted to do something else, which was the next project we did, when everyone was getting all excited about GameStop on Reddit and so on, we thought, yeah, we'll have a go at that. We'll see what stocks Reddit is predicting will go up and down. And so I made, again, a model using our website in an afternoon and just put it online. And it's actually free to access now on Medium. You can download the code and run it yourself and, you know, trade based on the sentiment model that I made. Or, you know, use the website and design your own. So yeah, this is just one of Lexikat's projects. We're doing a lot of other sort of language-based things. We're doing plagiarism detection and text similarity, and we're doing keyword extraction and all kinds of different things. But this topic modeling, the sentiment analysis, that is our main flagship product. So yeah, that's
okay, great. So I heard a lot of things like sentiment-based trading, and artificial intelligence, natural language processing, and then it's like, oh, fintech, some start coming in. Yeah. All right, we'll explore that later. It sounds very interesting, and like blockchain stuff. But let's start with some things that is fundamental to your training, right? So people come on our show, they say, I'm from the engineering, I'm from biochemistry, I'm from science, and you're from School of Public Policy. Why? Why did you, what caused you to enroll in the LKY school?
Oh, so my PhD was actually about public opinion and how people decide whether a government is a legitimate government or not. And we were really interested in comparing the ways that people decide in Europe and the US and the ways that people decide in China and Japan, for example. And the only way you can do that is by collecting open-ended data. So you can't give people a multiple choice questionnaire and say, is this a good government or a bad government? Because they'll give you an answer, but you get no nuance to it and you can't tell why they think it. So you have to let them write a paragraph.
All right.
And we ended up having hundreds and hundreds of people write these little paragraphs about what is a good government and what is a bad government. And we were analyzing them all by hand, and it was just taking forever to get through. But we noticed that a lot of people are actually using the same words and the same ideas. They're just not phrasing them quite the same. So we built this really simple model, and every time it got it wrong, we just got a researcher to add a word or delete a word or whatever, and it was far faster. Something that would have taken us sort of a year, it took well under a month. Mm-hmm. And the results were great. I mean, we completed the research, and I think someone just shared it on Y Combinator News a few days ago. And those guys were raving over it, saying, yeah, everyone neglects qualitative research because it's such a chore to do. But these guys got these amazing results, and everyone should try this. So yeah, we had this product, or, you know, it wasn't a product, it was just some code sitting in an office, mm-hmm, but we thought, you know, we really like this thing, so maybe other people will like it as well. And we decided to try and sell it, do some market research, see who would buy this thing.
Okay, so maybe let me rephrase. It's really complicated for me. So you are doing research to compare whether people like this government or yeah, you know, the sentiments about it.
Yeah.
And they talk about it or write about it, and it becomes a lot of text, right? And yeah, and they need a lot of analysis, and basically you have to read, right?
Yeah.
And you sort of automated it with a model. It's a computer model, right?
Yeah.
With coding and everything.
Yeah.
What's the final result of your research?
Oh, so it's pretty interesting. And I've got some more papers coming out on this because I've carried on doing it in the background. It's so much fun to do. So the idea behind it was that in the US and in Europe, what defines a government is the right to use violence to defend the country.
Okay.
And that means that foreign policy and military policy are really important. You will see people cite it as being sort of crucial to being a president. You want to be a president, you go to
therefore,
war.
therefore, people or politicians can then use this to say that, well, this is the people's sentiments and this is what they want, and I can couch my policy towards that, right?
Yeah. But in China and Japan, it's completely the opposite.
Oh,
In China, the boss is the guy who redistributes money. And it means that people have a totally different perspective on what politics is about and why people would do politics.
yeah.
And it explains a lot of things. So it explains why you can have, you know, you can have Li Hsien-loong go up and say, well, we're going to give the opposition constituencies less nice things.
Yeah, let's not go into politics too much. Yeah. So I think so. It's good, right? It's a good in a sense that people can use it. So, I mean, the end results is that you can check the sentiments of the population or a group of people you're surveying, and then you can make decision based on that, right? So there are a lot more application, right? Whether it's for politics, whether it's for decision making in, let's say, finance or social services, right?
And it means you can, you know, anticipate what people want before they want it. You can provide better, you know, people are cynical about politicians saying, oh, they're only in it for themselves, but they want to stay in power. So they've got to provide a few nice things.
Yeah, sure.
And if you can anticipate what people want, then you can provide it better. And
so does it mean that when you do this research, people can look at, you collect the data and this as a model? Can somebody say, I change a variable, I input something, and the model will give you different results, and then you can see, you can basically do simulation.
Yeah. So for the Reddit example, I think I literally just scraped Reddit by hand, because they do have a sort of API for scraping, but it's not very good. So I literally did it by hand, uploaded the data, and we made a model. And that was a very basic sentiment analysis model that we made using the computer. But if you edit just a few things by hand, you can turn it from a basic one into a really exceptional one.
Okay.
And that is what is not possible to do on Google. It's just a black box. You put in your data, you get results.
All right. So it's a very interesting thing, right? You're researching a behavioral kind of sort of analysis, and build a model, right? Computer model, right? STEM, right? This is where technology comes in.
Yeah.
The social sciences, but science is social sciences. Technology comes in, and then you build a model, right? So when you build the model, you use technology, right? So so I heard you mention NLP, AI.
Yeah.
What do you normally start with, and then how do you branch or move into AI?
So when I started on this, I knew nothing whatsoever about NLP or AI or
what is
anything.
NLP? What does it mean?
So natural language processing.
Natural language is like English or German, right? Yeah, okay.
And it's really difficult for computers to deal with. The difficulty level varies by language. So Chinese is a lot easier for a computer than English, but it's still difficult because you get things like, one of the first problems that we encountered.
You speak Chinese, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we did some work for the NUS School of Nursing.
Okay.
About patient responses and then whether they thought the care was
so
good.
They speak Hokkien then?
Oh, a bit, yeah.
A bit difficult, but Chinese Mandarin is fine.
Well, in this case, it was the English that was the problem because, for example, if you say the nurse was very patient with the patient, you're saying patient twice, but it means a totally different thing in each case. So a computer just can't deal with that.
Yeah. I mean, there's a joke about it when I was working in the medical industry, right? So my chairman told me, he said, my patients are all very good. I said, why? Because my patient is very patient. I said, okay, you always wait for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the problem, right? All this language processing, yes.
And any natural language processing model is essentially a probability calculator.
Yes.
Even the ones that are so sophisticated and they look like it's a human doing it. So Google Translate or GPT-3 that I mentioned, GPT-3 can write an essay far better than I would say 99% of humans. But it's all based on probability. It's not actually, there's no actual thinking going on. And it's just the fact that if you use this word, it's probably going to be followed by that word, which is probably going to be followed by that word. And it's the same on your phone when you do automatic texting, when it predicts what your next word is going to be. GPT-3 is just a more powerful and more sophisticated version of that.
Well, I think you have got sophisticated technology. I'm not going to delve too much into, but I think for the people listening we know that well, there is an application technology to solve everyday's problem, right? So you just need to spend time learning and you know, as in the case, coding and build a model out of it. But let's move on from your study, right? So right out of LKY school, I thought you should work in the public service. So why you decide to start a company?
Because we were sitting on this thing and it seemed great. So we thought, yeah, let's share it. Also, the job prospects in academia are kind of terrible at the moment. So
you are free soul. You doesn't want to be constrained.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, and you know, academia as well. A lot of the time, you apply for an assistant job, and then you do your postdoc, and then you maybe get a tenure track if you're really lucky, and then you spend 20 years keeping your mouth shut and kissing up, and then maybe if you're very lucky, you'll get tenure and you get to do what you want. But I'd rather do what I want now than in 20 years.
Okay, so what I mean is that even if you reach a PhD level, it's not necessary to say that if I get a PhD, I must be a professor, right? You can actually apply it in the go to industry, become a practitioner, or you have amass so much skill sets, right? Because you are really expertise in your field, and you can then translate that expertise, all the knowledge that you have into a business, all right? Because actually it's application to solve everyday's problem.
Yeah, I think last stats I read, maybe 1 in 200 PhDs eventually becomes a professor. So yeah, no, most people don't do it. And still, when you go to the PhD course, the job training that they give you is all geared towards becoming a professor, and hardly anyone ever does it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let me just bring you to starting the company, right? So you must have an idea that I say, okay, this is my PhD, this is my model. It's so useful. I just do it, and then voila, the money will come in. Is that simple?
Not at all. So my initial model was terrible. And I worked with a guy from the LKY school. So Junjay, who's now my co-founder. And we did this together. And the model that we have now, he did essentially 100% of the coding. So the original idea, the hacky version, was mine. And then he did essentially everything that you can see on the website. That is him and our lead developer, which is Xinjing. So from that point, I still do research, and I still, you know, we do a lot of survey research for clients and custom data analysis and stuff. So I do that, but all of the coding is them, because they're just so much better at it than me, and I'd rather step back and.
So you're now running the business, and then you have a programmer or a software engineer to do your coding, right?
Yeah.
So maybe you want to talk about it, the challenges of actually starting a business. You have your plan, and normally you write a plan and you just execute.
Yeah.
And then what happened?
Well, at the moment, I think, especially with COVID, I've spoken to a few sort of investors and VC firms since the lockdown, or after the lockdown ended, and they're still using the old scripts about, you know, what is your business plan, and what is, I want to see 3 years in the future in your spreadsheets and so on. And I feel like what do you think? Morgan Freeman at the end of the Shawshank Redemption.
Morgan Freeman. It doesn't look like Morgan Freeman.
Yeah. when he's talking about redemption in the prison system, you know, business plan. What business plan? There's no. Under COVID, no one has a business plan. Everyone has a plan until they're punched in the face with COVID. So yeah, we did actually go into it with a business plan. You know, when we were starting back in the ancient days before COVID. We had a plan. We're going to hit this milestone, hit that milestone. We'll develop the project. We'll get a beta version out. We'll get the full scale version out. We'll raise funds and so on. And the plan was to raise funds in sort of spring of 2019, which 2020. I mean, and obviously that didn't happen due to COVID.
Spring of 2020.
2020.
Yeah. So that's the time that nobody walk out of the house.
Yeah. And it just nothing was happening. So we decided that we can't function as a startup through COVID. Because
Okay.
a startup, you burn through all your money, you raise more money, you make a better product, and then you burn through
You go
that.
for market share.
Yeah.
Right.
And that just wasn't, if we continued to burn money at the rate we'd been going, the company would have gone out of business in, I think, July of 2020. So we sort of moved back a bit. We focused on the consulting clients, which we already had secured, and we knew we could get repeat orders from them. And we did take out a bridging loan of 20,000, so that helps as well. But yeah, we managed to keep all our staff. We didn't fire anyone, and the company is still going. We've got a solid product online. We can start raising funds again, hopefully, when things open up. And yeah, I think I was just checking the books yesterday, and I think we're going to break even this year. If not
great.
do better.
Yeah.
Which is not something you usually hear a startup bragging about, but
sometimes when they say, especially the tech venture startup, right? They always say, oh, to make profit is a sin.
Yeah.
Right? You should lose money. I don't subscribe to that, but I mean, from a business school professor point of view, if it's not to lose money, but gross profit is very important, right? So as long as you have a big gross profit, but you spend money on marketing and market share, I think that's fine, because that sort of build your future, right? Yeah. But you are extremely so-called, you're profitable in that sense, right? Gross profit is good. So you, in a way, a lot of people say, okay, what is this doing, right? I mean, we have terminology for it. We say pivot, right? You pivot, and you are trying to validate which is the correct application, because what you dream of may not be what the market wants. Okay. So you have tried a couple of projects, right? Consulting and in different areas or different industry using the same model, right? So maybe you can give a rundown of of 3 industries, and which one you think is the highest potential after 1 year of experimenting?
Okay, yeah. So the consulting was really great. I mean, obviously, for our consulting clients, I would far rather sell them the software. But they know us as consultants, so I can go to them and say, look, I will do this one project for you for 6,000 or for 12,000 or whatever.
So the first model is, sell software.
Yeah, I would rather sell them the software.
I think you're not selling software. I think you're licensing the software.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Then.
But they're used to the consulting model, so we can, I know I can make so much money off that per year. In the long run, I would far rather that they spend, $200 on a subscription and do their own work. And then we'll have
subscription.
Yeah.
So there's another model called subscription.
Yeah,
so it's like now we call it the SaaS, right?
Yeah.
Software as a service. So you don't own you don't buy the license, but you pay for monthly usage.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but if you want to scale and you want to make money like that, you need to be able to do marketing, which is not super easy at the moment. So we're relying on these consulting contracts, and we've got a lot of them. We're doing one at the moment, which is to do with, it's more political stuff, which is great because I enjoy doing the politics. And it's to do with trust.
Trust?
Yeah, we're doing, it's a big project looking at 10 countries.
Whoa.
To try and work out because everyone in every different country has a different way of deciding whether or not they trust a politician or not.
Okay.
And we're trying to work out what the heuristic is for each country. So, I mean, people in the Philippines, for example, the rates of religious belief are really high there. Everyone is a Catholic and they're faithful and so on. The Pope goes there and he gets mobbed. And Duterte goes on TV and says he's going to fight God. And everyone loves him as well. So what is going on there? Why? How did he convince people despite saying everything that you're not supposed to say?
I see.
On the other hand, you've got someone like Donald Trump, who his opponents say, oh, he lost so many billions. And he's supposed to say, yeah, that shows he has skin in the game. And that is why I trust him. In Japan, on the other hand, if you lost money, they would say, no, that's a record of failure.
I see.
Get out.
All right. So the culture and the people all are very different. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Good. So right. Let's talk a little bit about maybe your latest project, right? Which is fintech. You're going to trading, right?
Yeah.
So are you going to reposition yourself as a fintech firm?
I would like to, yeah.
Okay. And how are you going to position it?
So this idea of trading based on internet sentiments, it suddenly broke through in the news in January because of the whole Reddit GameStop thing that I mentioned earlier. With if you weren't following it, essentially there's a subreddit on the Reddit forum called Wall Street Bets, where they pride themselves on being essentially terrible traders and taking ridiculous risks and losing money and so on. But earlier in 2020, a few of them realized that if enough of them got together, they could cause short squeezes. So if they noticed that one of the big hedge funds was trying to short a particular stock, and the main one was GameStop, but there were a few others, they realized that if enough of them bought that stock, they could force the price higher and higher.
Okay.
And the guys who were trying to short it, they would lose their money and they would have to buy more just to extend the term. And,
all right, yeah.
And then the price goes even higher and they get locked into this cycle.
Yeah.
And they managed to push the GameStop price up, hundreds of percent from what it had been. And that really drew the idea of sentiment-based trading to everyone's attention. There'd been a few people working on it before, but not a huge amount. I know there's some guys in DBS, for example, who've been working on it for a while. And yeah, suddenly in January of this year, everyone cared about sentiment-based trading. And so we put a model out for free, a model that we've made. And we got a few sales off the back of that.
So you put it up for free, and what's the result?
So yeah, we had a few people subscribe to the website, saying, because this was just a basic model that I made. And I threw it out there and said, well, I made this in sort of 2 hours and I'm not an expert in this at all. So you could probably make a better one yourself if you subscribe to the website.
Okay. So you can actually turn it into, let's say, sentiment trading, but maybe the first is a freemium model where the basic services are free. You can go around, do work on it, and then you have premier features.
Yeah. So I mean, it's the website. You can model whatever you want using the website. If you want to do financial sentiment, great. And if you're an expert in the field, then you'll probably be much better at it than me.
Could you give an example that such software or any firm that deal with this and how big they are?
Oh yeah. So the big one was there were some guys in the US, and one of them was a guy from the Barstool Sports website for some reason. I have no idea why he was involved. They used a sort of an existing sentiment analysis algorithm, one that had been around for 10 or however many years, and hooked that up to a financial prediction system. And they made an ETF out of that. And the ETF raised 280 million on the first day. Wow. People wanting, and all the ETF does is track sentiment. It doesn't correct for, fundamentals or anything else. It just follows sentiment.
Yeah.
And still people were willing to buy that.
I see.
And that is the relatively primitive version. So at the same time, you've also got the big banks and the big funds who are doing this on the quiet in-house and not sharing their information or their trading strategies.
Oh,
yeah.
Sounds like the market is pretty big.
Yeah.
And hopefully you also, rise with the boat, right? There's a great future for this kind of software.
Yeah.
All right. So what we're going to do is that we are going to open up this session for Q&A from the floor, which is the floor now is the internet from the cloud. So let's see who have questions to ask, right? All right. I think the question is on the screen.
Okay, when did you decide that you wanted to start a business? When I realized that I didn't want to be an academic.
That's so simple.
Yeah. No, I don't want to, sit in an office all day.
Yeah, but it's not easy what you call decision to make. You just can't say, oh, just because I don't want to start in office, right? And but you got a PhD, right?
Yeah.
You get a cushy job, you get a good pay, and you are originally from France.
Yeah.
And you need to have accommodation here. There are a lot of things to worry about, right?
Yeah.
Housing, transport, living. You got a PhD, you got a cushy job.
Yeah.
And
I would
then
absolutely,
you say,
yeah. I would say, yeah, most people wouldn't want to do this, especially now. And I think especially in Singapore, because people have got, families have expectations. You're supposed to show up at Chinese New Year with a steady job and give out anpals to your cousin's kids.
Okay, nowadays, studying in Singapore, studying what you call a startup or tech venture is cool, because you see, now you see a lot of unicorns coming up. So that's why it's a company a unicorn, in Chinese New Year. Yeah. But that's fine. But I think the decision that goes through your head is you worry about living expenses.
Yeah, well, we actually did a survey on this for the university about asking people who were in graduate studies whether they would consider starting a business, or if they wanted to go into a corporate, or they wanted to go into academia or whatever. And yeah, it was the risk that really put them off. The fact that there was also the fact that a lot of them have been, they were the most brilliant person in their class throughout their entire education, and they were expected to go on and become a professor, and that was just a given.
Sure.
And they've got their career planned out. But then there are some who would be open to starting up a business, and they just said, look, at the moment I can concentrate on a steady career that will pay into my CPF every month, and then I get to retire and buy a couple of rental properties and have the income from that. Or I can throw it all into this sketchy venture that might collapse next year. No, obviously I'm not going to take the risk. So yeah, that was the main thing.
Okay, you're bold. That's what I can say. Maybe we can go on to the next question. What is the most immediate selling point we'll use to describe what Lexikat does?
Okay.
Buzzword.
Yeah, make money trading crypto.
Make money on cryptos. No, that's a cryptocurrency blockchain kind of thing. Yeah, Lexikat. Yeah.
No, I mean, you want to predict Bitcoin. You've seen on the screen that it can predict next day Bitcoin.
So you're saying that if you want to trade Bitcoin and you want to check the sentiments, use Lexikat.
Yeah. I mean, that's Bitcoin, stocks, whatever it is you want to do.
Then people will ask, how accurate is this sentiment trending?
I mean, that next day prediction thing, we had a solid correlation with that. I can't remember what it's.
Maybe you want to explain the correlation, how it works?
Okay, so the correlation is basically how accurate our software is. So if it predicts the Bitcoin is going to go up tomorrow and by, say, 10%, does it actually go up by 10%, or does it go up by less, or does it go up by more? And if we're wrong, how can we fix that? These kind of questions. So yeah, the models that we're testing, I think Google has about sort of, I think 30% correlation, and we've got 50% more than they have. So yeah.
Oh, so you're saying that based on your what I call competitive comparison, Google is 30% accurate, and you are 60%. You are 2 times better than Google.
We're 45 at the moment.
Oh, you're 45.
And we're working on it to push it past 50, in which case then we're really.
All right, so you're 1.5 times better than Google.
Yeah.
So Google should buy you.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
Come on, Google.
Okay, that's exciting. Okay, so maybe we want to move on to the next question. Yeah, is there any next questions is coming up? Yeah, I'm waiting for the next question.
Okay.
Oh, okay, the stakeholders part, right? Who are the most immediate stakeholders you're looking to collaborate? Basically, who are the partners?
So we've been working a lot with guys in the crypto field, just because they've shown an interest in
the crypto field, because now it's hot.
Yeah, and they tend to be more open to new technologies as well. So stuff like sentiments. Yeah. They're more interested in this. If I go to a bank and try and sell them sentiment analysis, they want a detailed breakdown over sort of the past 20 years, and it hasn't existed for 20 years, so we can't do that. Whereas crypto guys will just say, oh yeah, I've seen the algorithms, they look interesting, let's go.
That's interesting, because when it comes to trading, people use trend analysis, right?
Yeah.
So over a period of time, but sentiments can change overnight, which are lots of variables. And I think that's probably a selling point when it's extremely volatile market.
Yeah.
And you do not know where where the turbulence, right, the variables, right,
Yeah.
the factors when it happens, sentiments change, your so-called trend analysis totally go haywire, no use, and the sentiments becomes important.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, a company can have great, in the GameStop thing, so GameStop has pretty lousy fundamentals, which is why it was undervalued, you know, why it was, the value was low. But they got so enthusiastic about it, despite these lousy fundamentals, that the price shot up. And it got, realistically, it was overvalued, but...
Okay, so the question actually asks, who are the immediate stakeholders you are looking to collaborate with? So they are not saying, I'm the user, but who you can partner with. So who do you think should partner with?
So these crypto guys, we've brought them in on the...
Oh, the crypto guys, yeah?
Yeah, because they know about trading strategies and they know how the market works, so they can help us, advise us to make something better. You know, we're politics people, and that of course is the other big group of stakeholders, politics, because they do so much research in this field. So it's always great to... Interesting. So you call yourself politics people, but you are not really politicians. You're actually sentiments analysts. Yeah. And I mean, of course, politics use a lot of sentiments, right? Yeah. So sentiments analysts, but applying to business areas. Okay. Yeah. Or politics. I mean, we can, like the trust survey, for example. That has implications for politics and how politicians craft their message and what they want to appeal to and that kind of thing. And you know, the Singapore government does a huge amount of this kind of sentiment research. I mean, they were almost single-handedly keeping the market afloat. Through COVID. They must have a big budget for it, right? Yeah, and the Chinese government, it's huge. It's insanely big compared to anyone else. I think most government want to know the sentiments of the population, and when you do survey, the results pretty come out 3 months later. Yeah. All right, like COVID, you want to know exactly what they're feeling right now. Yeah. Okay. And they like high degrees of accuracy, so they're like huge data sets, which we love. So getting access to government data is always lovely. Okay, great. So let's maybe move on to the next questions. Okay. Are there any privacy concerns when conducting your research? I would say no, because we make it so that there isn't. So when you're training a model or you're doing an analysis, there are lots of ways that you can anonymize the data if you're doing this kind of research. Because a lot of the time you're going to be looking at these really huge data sets. Any individual post or any individual, you know, obviously they're not tagged, so we don't have the name, but any identifying information just gets lost in the mass. So it's metadata, right? So it's like you're processing a whole lot of data, but you're not looking at one and pick it up. Yeah, right. Okay. So I mean, if I've got, you know, 5 million tweets, then in theory someone could take the data set apart and pick out one particular tweet, but then you can do that just by doing a search on Twitter. So it's, you know, it's not me who's being insecure with the data. I mean, there have been incidences where these sort of AI and machine learning algorithms have given away personal information by accident. Okay. And those are sort of the really interesting ones. So the famous example would be the targeted ads for, say, targeted ads, yes, because it's granular. Yeah, these kind of things. So if you subscribe to Amazon and it makes recommendations and stuff, people realized that it was predicting that people were about to get pregnant before they got pregnant. And it sort of gives the game away to the family if they're sending you know, flyers about free baby products and so on. Okay. Now I want to give you a challenge, right? Because you say, okay, my results are slightly better than Google's, and I want to give you a challenge, right? To say if Jeff Bezos is sitting here, right? How are you going to sell to him, right? Because I'm not sure whether they will use sentiments analysis to push or to promote a surging of the products, right? Okay, so what I would say is that currently you're doing this using a warehouse full of guys with PhDs in machine learning. And with our system, you can do it with some guys who have sort of, you know, high school education, because our system is a no-code system. So you don't need to be an expert. That is the key advantage. I'm not saying ours is, our algorithms are more sophisticated than Google, but they're a lot more user friendly.
Okay.
So it means that you don't need to hire these high level guys. You can hire a basic guy who's much cheaper, and he'll get through far more work in the same amount of time for a far lower cost. And that is really the trend, the way that programming is going now, I think.
All right.
With APIs and low code and no code and so on. The idea is to create these very modular systems that can be put together by someone who has maybe a few or even no coding skills.
Yeah.
And learn very quickly on the job. And one guy who has maybe took a 6-month class in Python can now manage a whole website, which would not have been possible before.
So it's interesting, right? So what you're saying is that instead of huge big enterprises that employs tons of PhDs doing the machine learning algorithm or AI, and therefore having complete competitive advantage over the small and medium enterprises, and these SMEs can now have their own intelligence department, and they don't need a PhD, but they just need to be trained and high school, and they can do that as good as the big company. Sounds like a lot of SMEs should subscribe.
Yeah, hopefully.
Okay, let's move on to next question. What are the top 3 customer groups?
What are the top 3 customer groups? I would say at the moment, government would be the main one. And that is not just because government are the main ones spending money during lockdown on this. It's just because government does a huge amount of this research. Like I say, they really love high precision, which corporate clients, not giving away any secrets, but a lot of the time, if a company is doing a survey, it's because the boss already knows what he wants to do and he wants to get some research to confirm it.
Not sure.
Whereas governments, they want to know this thing to within 3 decimal places because their jobs depend on it. So government would be a big one. The other one I would say is these guys doing trading.
Yeah. So the government, the trading business industry.
So we deal a lot with that. And the other one is just companies doing market research. So we did, for example, a survey for the Motion Picture Association, and the
Motion Picture Association.
Yeah, they
mean America.
They've got a local branch.
Local branch in Singapore. Okay.
Yeah, so they were really interested in sort of working out how to compete with Netflix and things like that.
Oh,
so
that's interesting. Trying to see how movies, cinematic, right? Compete with online Netflix. Yeah.
And that was something that we specialize in our research, and it came out of the PhD as well, which is this idea of deal breakers, so deal breaker issues. So a lot of the time, if people are doing surveys, they take this approach where, what would make you buy this phone, for example? And actually, a lot of the time, you'll get far better data if you ask people, you were going to buy this phone and then you didn't, what stopped you? And you just get so much more useful information. And that is the way we approach the politics survey, for example. Not what would make you vote for a government, it would be what would make you stop supporting a government.
Okay.
And that is the real sort of crunch time moment for a government. So it's something that they want to know. And the same thing for these, going to the cinema. You were going to go to the cinema and then you decided to stay in and watch Netflix instead. Why?
Okay.
And it's that decision point moment that you need to pinpoint to be able to sell more cinema tickets. So
I see. All right. Very interesting that you have a I won't say analogy, right? Cinema versus online and a government trying to understand the opposition.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. All right. So that's the reason why you study in the School of Public Policy, the LKY school, and then you are doing business for the trading and all the other industries. All right, interesting. So maybe next question. So we have maybe another 2 more questions, and we should be okay. Yeah. All right. So okay. So what I'm going to do is to look at which direction are you going now, right? You say trading, and your company now do a lot of consulting project, and what happened now?
So we've managed to get to a position through COVID, and I was talking earlier about this sort of downside management approach that we had throughout COVID. And my background is in the Chinese classics, and there's sort of a saying.
Chinese classic.
Yeah.
We'll come to that later.
That's
but
where I
carry
started
on.
out. There's a saying that, the enemy decides whether or not I win, but I decide whether or not I lose. And our position throughout COVID was that we can't necessarily win, but we can decide not to lose. And we can take action to make sure that we survive at least. And then once we come out of COVID, then we'll be in a position to go on the attack and grow.
Okay.
So now we're at a position where the consulting contracts are paying our bills. And that means we've got the latitude to do other things. So we can do things like this crypto project, and we can put time into those. And that has been the big thing. So, having enough time just to develop these products. We've got another one going on with the Seoul National University in Korea. They're looking at text similarity. So the big application for that is plagiarism detection. And I think, so current plagiarism detection software, what that will do is it'll search the internet and see if, does this sentence come from Wikipedia or does it come from some other paper? Whereas what ours does is it compares one paper that someone has written with all of the other papers that they've written to see if it's the same guy who wrote all of them. And that is addressing a problem that has really sort of skyrocketed lately, and it's students paying other people to do their work for them. It's so much easier than it used to be just to go on one of these websites and pay someone to do your final essay for you. And current plagiarism detection software can't spot that. So they need an alternative solution, and they commissioned us to make one for them, which was relatively easy because we already had a lot of the algorithms.
That's great. Actually, your business is quite international. I heard 10 countries. I heard Korea. I heard a little bit about Japan, obviously in Singapore.
Yeah.
So you're quite international, though.
Yeah. We've got an office in Jakarta.
What are you doing in Jakarta?
Well, it's great to outsource stuff there. They've got some great coders there. They've got the university in Yogyakarta. They have an AI and machine learning department. And we bring in interns from there, and they come and work for us. And then some of them have become full-time employees, and then we've hired some other guys. And yeah, it's worked out. They had to really persuade me to open that office. I was really dubious about it.
Interesting, because based on the business, I thought you'll be like, okay, we're serving the politicians, we should be in Washington DC, and then we're serving the movie world, we should be in Los Angeles, yeah.
Well, US politics, it's a bit. I mean, I don't want to dump on democracy or anything, but one guy gets in and he has his own polling team.
Sure.
He spends 4 years in office, he gets kicked out, and then they leave with him. So
but the poll makes a lot of money, right? Yeah. So that's a good business, though. Okay, maybe we'll come back to one interesting thing called the Chinese classic.
Oh yeah.
You might want to say that classics. What's the speak in Chinese?
Oh, 你要我应该说
讲华语可以啊。
可以吗 ？OK。好，我上大学的时候，我就学了文言文。
文言文。I also do not know what's 文言文. Okay, carry on.
So that's classical Chinese.
Okay.
And I've been working over the lockdown, just in my spare time. I've been translating the stratagems of the warring states, and that's coming out soon.
So what is the most impressive 文言文 you can say now?
Oh God, I can't. It's not a spoken
Give me an
language.
example. Simple stuff.
Okay.
Wow. This is like three characters type, right?
Yeah.
No, I don't. I read Jin Yong Xiaoshuo, so no, I totally don't understand those stuff. Anyway, so any last parting words for our audience?
Yes, try our software, lexicat.com. It's great.
Okay, that's an advertisement, not a last parting word. Especially for the girls and the boys out there trying to do STEM as a career, as a learning, as a innovation, entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I guess I would probably say, these days anyone can do science. You don't have to do it in class. I mean, it's, I got a PhD, but not in science. And I was doing this on the side. And with the Korean university, we've actually got a scientific paper coming out with them. And, I'm not affiliated. This is citizen science, technically. So, yeah, there's lots, and there's more and more of us who are doing that.
Okay.
you know, bringing out papers without being in a university. So yeah, it is something that anyone can do these days and make something really fun and interesting. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to the end of our session. I think it's great to have Jennifer with us. You can see that he's so jovial, and she's so jovial. But you probably don't understand. She's under a lot of stress, raising funds, run the company, talking to a lot of projects. But that's what you do, right? Applying your knowledge. STEM is about applying knowledge, scientific knowledge, to build a better world.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Jennifer.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And thanks the audience for being with us. Coming next session. This is next Thursday at 8 p.m. We have Aspire with Prof Nyo, a female entrepreneur that deals with semiconductor, graphene. All right. So do keep track, and we'll send our publicity out, and just follow us. See you on next session.